All right, Chaz, let's get right to it. By about the second quarter last night, I mean, let's be honest, the sports world was begging for baseball season by about the second quarter last night. And with all due respect, honestly, with all due respect to the Seahawks and the Patriots, there's not going to be a bunch of post-Super Bowl buzz about that football game last night. The door is wide open, and here at Power Stacks, we invite you into spring training with us to walk through that door together as of today. And just in case you're maybe not as familiar with the show or the cast of characters we have here, let me give you one little nugget about Chaz. What the NFL hype machine did to drive buzz for the big game, all of that pales in comparison to the passion and the enthusiasm that my partner has for today. Because today, friends, the Reds are on the clock. The early arrivals punched in at the complex in Goodyear, and there waiting to welcome them back was Chaz. February 9th, 2026 is what the calendar says. So, Chaz, I ask you, where does this date rate on your personal and professional sports calendar?
It's my favorite day of the year because there's not quite enough things in life where you see someone, you say, good to see you. And basically what's unsaid is, it's good to see you today and every day for the next 8 months. But that's what today is. It's a formal handshake and a smile that begins a beautiful journey that we all know we have ahead of us.
It's good to see you smile, man. Good to see that smile back on your face. It's probably been there all day long. Am I right?
2 coffees before 8 this morning. I had the snack section ready to go by my desk. I dove a little farther into the protein bars than I expected to today, but it's been a great day.
It's been a great day, and it's a great day for anyone looking forward to baseball season and excited about your Cincinnati Reds. So welcome to Power Stacks, proud members of the Growler Podcast Network. Just so you know how the show lays out today, that bare wall behind Chaz, he's boots on the ground. He's in Arizona. He's in Goodyear. And later in the show, we're going to hear from Tito. We're going to hear from Spencer Steer, conversations you had earlier today. But let's not bury the lead, and let's not make people wait any longer on this first show of spring training. Let's get right to it. In the leadoff spot, which is how we start this show every week, in the leadoff spot, let's get right to your conversation with Reds right-hander Hunter Greene. We talked about looking forward to this conversation, looking forward to Greene and what he might bring this season. On day one, how would you characterize that conversation you had with Greene?
These aren't Greene's words. This isn't what he said, but I think you can feel it. There's a bit of the exact type of chip on your shoulder that you want from a guy who the Reds are hoping to lead their rotation. Like, every year until last year for Greene had been a steep upward trajectory. Promising rookie year. 2023 took a step. Top 10 in Cy Young voting in 2024. 2025, he pitched better than ever, but there were injuries. There were dominant moments, but there was that setback. And then despite helping carry the Reds to the playoffs with some unbelievable starts down the stretch against elite teams, something that had been on my mind for a while was how Greene processed the way last season ended, which for him individually was 3 innings, 6 runs in Dodger Stadium. So how he processed all of that and how that shapes his mindset entering 2026 is something that's been on my mind all offseason. And so that's where I went to. Here's Hunter Greene in the Reds clubhouse this morning.
Just hungry, continuing to want to build up last year. Wanting to continue to stay out there on the field and just compete at my best ability and look the cards forward in there.
What were the biggest lessons you took from last year, just in terms of you had some great moments, but taking the next step overall?
What specifically? Like, are you saying just with how last year was? And then
I'll ask about the health first. What do you feel like you can do to, and maybe some of it's just bad luck, but have that full 32 start 2026?
continuing to try and bulletproof my body. That's all I could do. That's really it. If there was a secret recipe, everybody in here would throw complete years of complete starts. And there's no secret recipe. Everybody's body is different. Season is different with people. And, bodies move differently. No one's really producing the output that I put out. I mean, school ball and some guys that throw hard, but nobody's really done it with the numbers showing that. So everybody's body's different, man. I mean, all I can do is control what I can control, continue to work hard, put my best foot forward, and that's all I can control.
A couple kind of direct questions. What did you learn from your start in LA?
Yeah. Other than it being my first playoff start and all those emotions and being able to silence all those, being back home, all of that stuff, my stuff just wasn't sharp. I didn't execute as best as I wanted to. I think, if I have my best pitches and I'm executing, then probably a different outcome. It's also the Dodgers got a really good team, and they perform a lot differently even in playoffs. So there's a lot of factors, man, but it's 2036. It's a new season. My mind's not on that game. I've already analyzed that game enough and have figured those things out. So I'm looking to turn a new page.
This is my last question about that. Can something like that fuel you? Not that you needed it, not that you need that, but can something like that even add to it?
Yeah, it can for sure, but you're right, exactly what you just said. And if any of us in this clubhouse need fuel in that way or any other way to produce, we're already in a bad spot. There's already a problem. We already have enough fuel within ourselves. We've dedicated our lives to this game since we were 6 years old. That's enough fuel to want to produce and want to be the best that you can be. So you said it yourself. That doesn't add any fuel. If anything, you just make adjustments and you figure out how not to have those same results and still a lot of things out of your control. It's a failing game. So you can still approach it the right way. You can still work 10 times harder. You can still execute better. Doesn't mean it's always going to come out on that side of the results. So, but yeah, I wouldn't say fuel, just learning and continuing to make those adjustments, and that's what it's about.
Last year, you posted your whiteboard of your goals. Do you set the same goal? Obviously, you'd like to win the Cy Young this year. Everyone would. Do you set the same specific goals for this year, or do you look at goals differently entering 2026?
That's a good question. I set the same goals. I think approach is different. I think my mindset is different than the prior years going in. Different ways on how to execute that and get to that accolade. But I've been doing whiteboards since I was in middle school, so it's always been a visual thing for me. I'm a visual learner, a visual person. Have that in my gym and to be able to see it and look at it every day, I think is important, and it keeps the main thing.
How is your mindset different
than last year?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, man. I mean, my mindset's always really strong. I think it's just I feel like I'm more of a pitcher. I feel like I'm a little bit more complete with some of my other pitches and sharper. And I think being able to use that to my benefit during the season will show.
So I can use this post-interview segue to talk about Greene staying healthy or the injury stuff, the body maintenance, all that. But what I'd like to say right now is that something that's not said enough is that Hunter Greene is really, really good. Over the last 2 years, the only guys with at least 30 starts who have an ERA better than Greene are Skeens, Drake Skubal, there you go, Yamamoto, Chris Sale, Zach Wheeler, the best pitchers in the game. Talking to people about Greene today, that was the big thing that was stressed, is there's not enough conversation about how good Hunter was last year, to the point where there's no new pitch he needs to add. There's no new sequencing stretch he needs to work on. Greene's here. There's always development, and there's especially so from a health perspective, but there's no new thing for Hunter this year, except for when he makes it to the playoffs, say in LA on that stage. What does this moment look like? And I think the Reds are banking on that experience that Hunter had last year, representing the difference.
You and I talked about this, and I saw it at Reds Fest because I spent a considerable amount of time talking to Greene at Reds Fest. And I was glad you said what you said, because I'm big into, you haven't seen somebody in a few months. What's your first reaction? What do you feel? What do you see? What do you sense that's different about someone when you haven't seen them for a while? And when we're talking about professional athletes, something's different, because if you haven't seen him for a few months, they're thinking and working daily to be better. So it's our jobs to start observing some of those things, and then the athlete gets to hopefully translate that to the field when the season starts. We both sensed after you framed Hunter Greene the way that he is in terms of what the numbers show when he pitches, how good he is when he pitches, how the Reds have success when he pitches. There aren't many of those guys. Your list on, if you want to measure it by ERA, that's a short list, and that's an all-star list. Everybody wants one of those guys. So, yes, the Reds have that player in Hunter Greene, and so this feels like a season where you expect more, where you expect you can't count on health. You hope for health. You train for health. But if you get that from Hunter Greene, you expect another step. And in talking with him, it feels like that's where his head is. It feels like, the old chip on the shoulder may be there for Hunter Greene as the Reds start this season. And I think that's the best possible way for someone like Greene to go into this season when expectations are up for the Reds.
I mean, not to compare him to Joe Burrow, but it almost feels like what you say with Burrow. And of course, this wasn't true in 24, but like the old line with Joe is if he plays 17 games, the Bengals are going to make the playoffs. Like if Hunter Greene makes 32 starts, I'd put money on him being at least in the top 5 in the NL Cy Young Award race. That's just the level he's at. And because, as you heard Greene say, there just aren't pitchers who can do what he does. It's hard to see that dropping off, especially when you factor in. I mean, I saw him today. I've seen him throw. Like the fact that he's in really good shape right now. Each of the last 2 springs, he's reported in great shape after, not that it was a problem in previous years, not that it was an issue, but it really showed up and improved over the last 2 seasons. That's a part of the idea, and in their mind, the hope of keeping Hunter healthy. But here's the big health thing. I had a long conversation with Derek Johnson today about Hunter in the playoffs and also Hunter and his health. And DJ said that Hunter is very highly attuned to his body. He has to be able to figure out what stiff is, what sore is, what hurt is. Sometimes there are things you can pitch through. Sometimes there aren't. He's stressed. There are times he has pitched through aches and pains, and I know of some important times where he's done that over the course of his career, but he needs to figure out or continue to figure out what's possible. That kind of fits the theme with Hunter. Again, he's arrived as a pitcher, but the playoff moment was new for a guy who's just 26 and barely pitched, in the minors and didn't go to college and didn't pitch a ton in high school, like who's still catching up on a lot of these experiences. The playoffs were new. And then the injury and the maintenance side of things is another thing he's trying to learn on the fly in the big leagues. That is the thing, the health stuff, that'll be the constant conversation with Hunter all season.
Everyone's on a journey. It's always felt like Hunter Greene has been on this journey since the time he was, on the cover of Sports Illustrated, to being drafted, to his first adversity with the injury, to being here. And you forget how young he is. And I'm not trying to make that a part of the conversation of, he's young. He's very young, but it feels like a lot of things have happened to Greene that you have to confront and address and move forward. And he knows those things. They might be on his whiteboard, in the off season, all the things. The things that he's faced, how he's responded to them, what he hopes to do coming up. It just feels like you could kind of track that timeline for Hunter Greene as much as any player. And this season feels like an inflection point in the timeline. Like this is a season where some of those things that he's done, accomplished, confronted, overcome, it feels like they may all come into play for him to match the physical and the mental strength and gifts that he's always had. If you're the Reds, that's your hope. If you're Hunter Greene, that's your mission. And for those of us observing and watching, that's not being a cheerleader for Hunter Greene. That's just a factual observation based on how you see players develop and what you see in someone's makeup day to day, I think.
And you talk about his path, and what's so interesting here is like what we thought his path was. We thought that his entire life had been preparing him to take the ball in LA on September 30th in 2025. And obviously turned out that wasn't his moment. And like we keep saying, was that piece of adversity. And my biggest takeaway from the interview that we just heard from Hunter was, and the reason I really wanted to include all that sound here, you can kind of feel the passion that's really interesting and notable. And there was the sequence where he and I were going back and forth. I talked about, like, you don't need that extra motivation. Like, it's funny how it comes full circle. Hunter didn't remember this, but I was quoting himself to himself. I remember entering 2023, the Reds named Frankie Montas the opening day starter. And the whole thing was the Reds trying to send a message to Hunter. They trying to light a fire under him. And I vividly remember at that same locker in Goodyear, him saying, like, man, if I need that, then we got a problem. And so that was what was on my mind, as I said, like, not that you need extra motivation. You heard Hunter's passion responding to that. And that is just Hunter's expectation for how good he believes he's going to be is unique. And that's a part of what has gotten Hunter here. And it's a part of why the Reds believe in him.
I mentioned earlier, maybe you're not as familiar with Power Stacks. Brian Giesenslaw, Charlie Goldsmith. You may ask yourself the question, what is Power Stacks? Well, it's what you just heard. It's day one reporting from spring training in Goodyear, Arizona. It's reporting from Goodyear every day between now and the time the Reds head back to Great American Ballpark for opening day. And we'd like you to be a part of it. You can reach us at powerstackspod@gmail, powerstackspod@gmail. If you have a business, a company, know someone who does, someone who might want to partner with us and reach this audience, Reds country, at the very beginning of what you expect to be an exciting season in Cincinnati, we can customize something for you. Get your message to this audience. Just hit us up at powerstackspod@gmail, and we can make that happen. The possibilities are endless. We will customize something for you, but know what it is. It's great reporting. It's great storytelling. It's boots on the ground in Goodyear, Arizona, in the form of Chaz, and we'd like you to be a part of it moving forward. Chaz, the Twitterverse shook this morning, dare I say, on X, I guess. I get carried away with Twitterverse. On X, I think it was 7:54 a.m. local time in Arizona. There was a photo shared by Charlie Goldsmith announcing your presence and your arrival at the complex in Goodyear, Arizona. My question for you is, was I right? I had a response to that in what I envisioned in my head was going on at the moment that photo was taken and posted. Was I right? Was I on? Do I know you as well as I think I know you?
So what you said was tattered notebook in hand. Notebook was right next to me. Not tattered yet, as I can show you right here. It's only day one. You can't break
That's
it
right.
in a day. Give me a few weeks.
Yeah.
Still looks nice. You said iced coffee by your side, and that not just an iced coffee. The Charlie Goldsmith special is you get the iced coffee with your breakfast when you eat in, and then you get the to-go iced coffee that you carry with you. So usually around, depends on the day in the morning, maybe around 8 in the morning in Goodyear, you'll see me walking through the hall, to-go bag in one hand, second iced coffee in another. You said specially collected quarter zip. And I mean, not that this is a
specially selected. Yeah.
Not
so I'm 2 for 2 so far. And with the quarter zip, that makes me 3 for 3, right?
Not that this is a fancy or special quarter zip by any means, but I like it. I like the color. I actually made the call around 8 p.m. last night to switch from the gray to the blue. I thought the blue would be a little more festive for the first day. So
good.
That's 3 for 3. And the cherry on top was a famously terrible photographer among people who have seen my photos before is me. And I thought that one looked pretty nice.
It was good. There was some artfulness to it, a good use of natural lighting, I think, of the ball on the dirt on the complex. Who'd you see first? We talked about that last show, who you might run into, what those conversations early might be. We might get producer Kent to bring out the dramatic tease music that we usually use just for you telling this story. Paint a picture for us, Chaz. Be a storyteller. You get out of the rental car this morning. You walk into the complex. Take me through those first few steps and first few minutes in Goodyear.
So the first day is unique, and actually the second day is also unique because tomorrow guys just get there based on when their physical times are. Today is more like nebulous. There's not really as much of a set schedule on the first day, so I knew the media stuff would be sometime between 9 and noon. But I wanted to get there on the early end just in case. And it ended up, guys were there around 8:30, and that's when I talked to Pagan and Steer. But I got there around 8. I run into Carson Spires and Christian Encarnacion Strand, who were there early. Yeah, Strand.
That's in my notes to get to later.
Well, I haven't caught up with him yet. Just a hi, how you doing? How's your off season? I'm interested in what he's been up to.
Right.
But that's a conversation for another day. Just what's up with them. Ran into Brad Metter, the GM. Went in the clubhouse. Benson Louder was there early, and then Pagan got in, and I interviewed him. Talked to Pierce Johnson about the Super Bowl. So it's just good seeing everybody. It is really the highlight of the day.
Did you have a chance yet to patch things up with Tyler Callahan?
No, yeah, because the story is, and it wasn't bad. At Reds Fest, as I was leaving, I heard someone say, "Hey," and I was sure this person who I know what Tyler looks like, but he was in a hat and a coat and a beanie, and he was among the fans, the people. So I didn't think a Red would be among the people. So I assumed it was one fan talking to another. And then wait, sorry, Tyler. I know. What's up, man? Good. I've said this before. His son, Crew Callahan, the best name of all the kids on the team.
All right. Well, you'll have a chance to do that later, I know, but I remembered that from last. And when you said Encarnacion Strand, the reason I perked up, I literally put in my notes, we haven't mentioned Christian Encarnacion Strand since the middle of last season, barely. And so at some point, I know you're gonna catch up on that and dig into that. But I wanted to acknowledge at this point, when the Reds sent out today the headshot list of the roster and the coaches and everything that goes into the media guide that we dig through at spring training, I went through the faces and it struck me. I went, we haven't even talked about Encarnacion Strand, so catching up with him is going to be something I look forward to.
I'll give you a tease. I haven't even talked to him about this, but if the story is what I think it is, I'm not expecting him to make. Maybe he is a nice camp and does. I think there's a really interesting story there that I'll tease. I think I got a nugget on CES today.
All right. I love that. So that kind of set the stage or set the scene. I'm envisioning all of these things, and your conversation with Greene is, that's where I would have gone first too, had I seen him. So I'm glad you did that. But there's always a couple of day one headlines. And let's be honest, we're calling this day one. Nothing is officially started yet, really, for the Reds. There are physicals and all this. These are the early arrivals, and position players generally have a little more time. Some are there now. But what was your day one headline in terms of, what you walked away with that was newsy, I guess?
There was one like newsy thing, but I'll start with the absence of news. The headline of the day is no reported injuries, aside from Carson Spires out for a long time with Tommy John. But among all the guys on the 40-man roster, no reported injuries. That's huge. That's a big deal. And then, so usually the news of the day is who's hurt. And then, all right, here we go. We got all these battles. And usually it's the manager saying competition everywhere except for this spot and this spot. Usually it's like Ellie's our shortstop and TJ's our center fielder and the rest will play out over camp. Well, this year, McLean's the second baseman. Ellie's the shortstop. Cabrine's the primary third baseman. TJ's the center fielder. Marte's the right fielder. There was a lot of Francona hyping up Sal Stewart today. He's going to get a ton of work at first, and I would expect the odds are he's the first baseman. That makes Steer, who's an everyday player with a capital E, going to play a lot of left. Tito even said that Steer, and we'll talk about this later, but might not move around as much if everyone's healthy. And Gino's the DH. So that's the team. There's not that battle. And that, I don't know how you view this, Brian, but I view that as a sign of a more mature, advanced team, just how much has been settled.
Of course. You have to view it that way. And you're talking about the lineup, and you can put the same context around the rotation. Not as much the bullpen because there are new faces there, but you can pencil in the rotation and how many years for the Reds or other teams you go to spring training and you may have two. You're lucky if you have three and you're looking for a fourth and fifth guy. I think the Reds have that same flexibility and maturity now in the rotation as well. But let's take that into your first visit to the manager's office. Terry Francona is there, and so the first spring training edition of Tito's Take on Power Stacks yielded that information about the lineup and probably a few other things. So walk us through those first questions to the manager and his response. First of all, set the mood. Terry Francona sits in the chair for the first time in a couple of months and fields questions. How does he look? How does he feel? How does he approach just getting back into the groove of things in Goodyear?
First 5 minutes, we're talking about college basketball.
Of course.
Arizona. I mean,
Wildcats are pretty good.
And how much he's seeing that head coach put an imprint on everything. And so he's fired up about that. But we talked about the absence of news in those other areas. The quote unquote news of the day was TJ's going to hit first again. Ellie's going to hit third again. Talked about Gino hitting fourth. Tito said the big question is who's going to hit second. So here's Terry Francona talking about Suarez and the impact that has with the lineup, but then ripple effects that creates in that number 2 spot.
A big part of last season was, like, until June, you didn't have a late-in comeback, extra innings. What can a power threat do to kind of win you a game late?
Well, I mean, it's the obvious. You know, if he doesn't come up late, doesn't matter. But I just think it's a presence in the middle of the order, and that usually makes people in front of you and behind you better. That's just before you even start. So that helps. Because we were mixing and matching so much last year. You know, trying to protect Ellie, and we were doing with younger guys, and every time we did it, it seemed like, we moved, would struggle a little bit. And I get it, because you start to become a focal point for other teams. And we're going to have to figure out, like, who hits second. To me, that's the biggest, because we want to have somebody to break up Ellie and TJ. So it needs to be somebody that right-handed. And what my first thought is, Marte, but he hit lefties. He struggles so bad against lefties so we got to just figure some things, and then again, we haven't played a game yet, but those are things I think about.
And then, I mean, just with the depth in this lineup, you've got a lot of options that you can make a case for.
You do. I agree with you. Sal, Steer, I agree.
I didn't have time to look it up as this thought just occurred to me, but if I remember this correctly, like CES and Jamer Candelario were right in the middle of that opening day lineup in the upper half last season. If at least one of them, I believe both of them. This is a much deeper middle of this order. And that's what I was talking about with Tito. Like, you have better options, whether it's second, whether it's fifth, whether it's sixth. Marte, his OPS I've got right here was 562 against left-handed pitching last year. So that'll give him something to work on this spring. But he has the upside to be maybe their best option there. If not, talk about Sal Stewart buzz. If I were to guess, I see Sal hitting fifth right now because Tito said later that he thinks Sal can really help Suarez as kind of the protection behind Suarez because that's how high they are on Sal Stewart. And then Steer, you know him, you love him. Once he was healthy last year, he was very good. So, and then that's not even to mention Stevenson and McLean. They've got true options who you can use in different ways.
You had a good nugget earlier today from that conversation with Tito about his reaction to the Reds signing Eugenio Suarez. When that question came up today, I would imagine the question was something like, man, big news late in the offseason. What did you think when the Gino news came down? What was his reaction and response to that?
He said he was about to head from Tucson, where he lives, to Goodyear, and he talked to Nick Kroll, and he said, I'll run. And then he also called Bob Castellini just to say he appreciated what the Reds did to go over budget. So you could hear it in Tito's answer that we heard, just talking about the cleanup spot and how they could never quite figure that out last season and the ripple effect that had. He also talked about how they had to do a lot of platooning last year. And something we learned about Tito is that he loves a stable lineup, and he's for platooning. He's done it all the time. He did it in Cleveland. He'll do it here when it makes sense. But even more, he loves a steady, especially top half of the lineup. And Suarez goes a long way to making that happen. So obviously it got a heck of a reaction from the manager.
Yeah, there was good stuff coming via X earlier today. Feels like a good time to remind people you can get this and follow us. Charlie on X is at CharlieG_. Is that right?
2 underscores.
2 underscores. Okay, you need 2 underscores at
The first,
Charlie
just
G.
1 underscore was taken, so he had to do 2.
Well, that guy doesn't matter much. You matter. So 2 underscores after Charlie G at B Giesenslaw. Google it, look it up. You can figure out how to spell Giesenslaw. And then at Power Stacks Pod is where a lot of this happens on X as well. And Charlie, I want to give you the opportunity. Where can people sign up for and get the Chalkboard? Because so much good information. Some of it you'll hear on Power Stacks, some of it you won't. What comes on Charlie's Chalkboard? How can they find that?
We're rolling, and I've got a literal notebook full of features and reporting that I'm really excited to work on this spring. And the beauty of spring training is some of it's the big stuff. Like, all right, you sit down with Hunter, the state of Hunter Greene. And then, like we mentioned, like, I think there's actually a really fun CES story this spring. And I want to write about Mike Napoli and the automated ball strike system. So there's a lot of middle ground and big ground, and so that you can find that charlieschalkboard.substack.com. You can find that link through my Twitter as well, and when you end up on the Substack page, you'll get that notification to sign up so you can get it directly into your email. And then you can also find it on Fox 19's website. So I am very excited about what this spring training has in store.
Get the Chalkboard, and as far as Power Stacks go, like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, we love those. I loved reading them after the last show. Keep that up and stay in touch with us. Tell a friend and stay in touch with us about what you think, what you like, what you might like to see. We've gotten some good suggestions so far. And as we formulate and kind of craft a plan for this season, now that we're off and running, we'll incorporate some of those things and have some new and exciting things to do this year. As I've watched the offseason unfold and watched some of the shows or the print outlets that talk nationally mostly and then zero in on a specific team from time to time, when I see what is being said about the Reds, specifically when the Suarez deal happened and everybody said, okay, well, what do the Reds have now? What might the lineup look like? Here's what this and here's this. I was surprised that a lot of the lineup projections that I saw or saw written about either didn't mention at all somehow, which is baffling to me, or mentioned as an afterthought Spencer Steer. I couldn't believe it. But I had legitimate things that I looked at that I went, that can't be right. But it was. People nationally were looking at the Reds and not necessarily talking about Spencer Steer as the capital E everyday player you said he's going to be. We've labeled him before as a utility guy. Is that label still appropriate, or what did you find out today about where that might go?
I believe what Tito said was, let's see how we look when we break camp. But on the whole, I think this was the money quote from Terry Francona. He said, right now, with this full strength roster, if he can just play left and also play second, where he wouldn't be starting at second, but he'd be your option for when McLean needs a day off, and then when Ellie needs a day off and McLean goes to short, because now you don't have Lux or Espinal to just be that backup infielder. So if Steer can just play those two positions and everyone's healthy, you're fine. You're golden. And obviously McLean's the second baseman on a regular basis. So that puts a red star next to left field as the spot where, if everyone's healthy, I expect Steer to play the most time this season. And we'll hear from him here in a second. But when you hear him talk, you can sense that left field's kind of a focus for him as well, because of how much they want Sal to play every day, and because Gino will give the Reds another option at first, and because, you know, you kind of need to backfill first baseman and then use your better defenders at more versatile, more premium spots. So now again, we'll see where the Reds are at on a specific day. You know, it's May 8th and you're playing whoever you're playing. And I don't know, Brian Hayes' shin is swollen because he got hit by a pitch, and you're facing a left-hander with a good sinker. Like, you'll get there when you get there, and Steer will move around, and he'll be that super utility guy based on what you need that day. But right now, again, as a capital E everyday player, you know, those national projections aren't what the Reds are saying. I expect to see Steer a lot more in the outfield this year, and he loves that. He embraces that. And that's kind of Spencer Steer's story this year. He didn't really feel like he got to do all the Spencer Steeriness last season. Because originally in camp, his shoulder was barking, and then he talked his way onto the opening day roster when he shouldn't have been on the roster because he was hurt. He had a terrible start. But then even when he bounced back, he was just playing first because the Reds didn't have another first baseman. Well, this year, moving around, Tito even mentioned today, like, start him in left, move him to first in the 8th inning for defense. Like, that's Spencer Steer, and that's what gets him excited. And being able to do that and really be himself, you sense that joy from Spencer. Here's my conversation today in the clubhouse with Spencer Steer.
Start out with this generic question kind of every spring. How would you describe kind of the vibe of the team at entering 2026?
Yeah, I think it's, there's a lot to be excited about. I think everyone is anxious to get to work again. We know there's a lot of things we need to get clear at. But I would look at last year, say it was definitely, a good year for us. But like I said, I think everyone's excited to get back and, find ways to get better.
Having that playoff experience, does that shape the tone or kind of the feel in any sort of way? Can you kind of know what to expect, at least in that way?
Yeah, I think a big takeaway to me is understanding how little the margins are. How we got in. We tied the Mets, so we had the tiebreaker. It's just understanding, like, you play 160 games and every single one of them matters just as much as the next. So I think just understanding that the margins are so small, so you have to find ways to get better every day. And especially in spring training, challenging yourself, challenging your swing, trying to expose yourself, find your weaknesses, work on them. I think that's kind of a big takeaway for me is it's really important to find ways to get better every day.
I'm going to ask about Gino next, and of course that helps the lineup. But I remember last year something you said multiple times, like, when we play clean, we win. Mm-hmm. How does it feel like even this year, kind of again, defense is going to be the key for how good you guys are defensively? It'll shape how good of a team you are.
For sure, and look at our pitching set. That's pretty dang good. So we can pair a good defense behind that. I think we'd stack up against anyone.
Do you have in your Gold Glove finalist at first? You move around more this year, it seems. In left specifically, anything you focused on that can help you take that next step at left field?
I think it's first steps. Going back on balls is where I've struggled the most in my short time out there. And then just really getting out there and getting reps. I think it's a big thing I can do is, we talked about the 3-foot circle around you. How fast can you get out of that 3-foot circle? So that's kind of what I've been working on a lot this off season, and then obviously pair that with normal, speed and agility training. So yeah, I'm excited to get a shot out there.
Are you? And again, you've been a good player for a while, but like, are you faster this year? Are you more athletic or more agile this year? Or anything like that?
I think I've just cleaned up my running a little bit. I think that's kind of why I dealt with the quad issue last year. It had to do with running mechanics. So, did a good job cleaning that up. And not sure if that actually made me faster or not, but I know it feels smoother. It feels like I can run more effortlessly. I'm not exerting as much an effort while I run. So
I've heard some guys get the biomechanic rate or whatever. Did you do something like that?
we didn't do, the fancy machine or biomechanics stuff and get it down to actual like the skeleton. But my trainer in the off season worked hand in hand kind of with our strength staff and speed people here. So there was kind of a team effort on what I could do to clean that up and keep myself as healthy as possible.
What is anything as far as stupid lifting?
I mean, when I think of him, I think of all the good things I've heard about him as a person, and his ability to mesh well with the clubhouse. That's kind of what you hear about a guy like that. So I get excited to when I hear that, getting to know the guy and having him around on a daily basis and the things you can learn from him, the questions you can ask him, and he's been around a long time. He's been doing it for a while, and he's had a lot of success. So, I think those are the things that I think of, and then obviously you got the guy who hit 50 homers too near us.
Obviously, Suarez will fill that important clubhouse presence, and guys like Trevino will as well. But Spencer Steer, one of the rising leaders on this team, and I've been talking about this really since, and I'll say this now publicly. Like Kirk Casale told me this when Steer was a rookie. Like he's going to be one of the guys, just from a leadership standpoint. And Steer's grown into his own, and he's becoming one of the guys on this team.
That's the new number 7 talking about the old number 7 in Gino Suarez, and that is going to stay the case, by the way. Steer stays number 7, but that's about as informative and reflective, I think, as I've heard Steer. He's available, but he's not usually a long answer guy, and maybe it's certainly there's the time of year that it is versus the game day, in the clubhouse once you get into the grind of the season. But I'm glad to hear that and glad to see that and hear him in that way. I think that's a big X factor for the Reds is he 100% healthy and looking like he used to play and like he's projected to play, and then how do they best use that and make it mesh with the other set pieces in the lineup? But I think he's the perfect player to attempt to accomplish that, given his talent and given his ability to play different places.
Here's the line on Steer, and the loading the stats giving me the spinny wheel right now. So I think I have it memorized. So I mentioned he started the year on the roster when he shouldn't have been, and he just had to DH because he couldn't throw. And I remember Francona said, he's half a player. From the day that Steer was able to play the field, that was April 20th in Baltimore. I believe it was a 762 OPS between that and the end of the season. And that included some highs and some lows and some lulls. And obviously he played a Gold Glove defense at first, Gold Glove finalist. So
with the quad injury.
With the quad and he had the rib injury in September, but still give me a 762 OPS, the potential for elite first base defense. Plus, I think he can be average in left. I believe that. That's a useful player, man. That's a player that gets $10 to $20 million, 10 to 15 maybe. That's a very, very solid piece to have on your team. And Steer's a guy the Reds view as a very important part of what they're doing.
Got a couple other things for you from day one. You broke your rule. You admittedly broke your...
I did.
And I think you described it in the previous episode as a, quote, hard and fast rule for the first day at the complex, that you write about vibes and expectations. You touched on it, I think, a little bit, but where would you set the vibe that you got from day one today, since that wasn't necessarily your headline coming out of our first show?
So let me go through this right now. Stevenson wasn't there today because he was having his arbitration hearing, but Stevenson's been around. Steer, Benson, Friedel, and then really every pitcher. Green, Abbott, Lodolo, Singer, Burns, Louder, the entire bullpen. They've been here. So today wasn't the first day. And usually that's a part of the whole vibes and expectations thing, is I use an anecdote this guy hugged that guy and fist bumped that guy. And Ellie, I believe, gets there tomorrow. And then everyone else is coming in. Everyone's coming in the next day or two. This is an early arriving group. So it's not like today felt as momentous as the first day felt in 2023 and 2024, etc. So for that reason, like vibes and expectations weren't the talk of the day because these guys, they've been together. So today was just kind of a workmanlike, all right, let's go to the cage. Let's make sure my locker's organized. I not every pitcher, but 75% of the pitchers I saw throw bullpens today, like they're just working. It was a very workmanlike middle of March type feel for a quote unquote first day.
All right. Final thought. A quick thought on the plan for the WBC guys. What will that look like? How much will they be gone? What do you know about that at this point?
Francona talked in depth today about the concept that it's kind of a good thing for the Reds that they don't have a ton of participation. He said, especially with their pitchers. Hunter has said, I believe he said in September that he turned it down just to be around the team. And then Tito revealed today that he had several conversations about it with Nick Lodolo, who I hadn't been aware was, I guess he must have had an offer if he had multiple conversations with Terry Francona about it. He said he'd support him and he'd want him to do well, but kind of the money quote there was, Francona said, we want him to be wealthy as well. And maybe there'll be a day down the road where you have 50 million in the bank and you go ahead and do it. But that's not this year for Lodolo, who for a guy who I think's had like, I guess earlier, but it's had like one normal spring in the last 5 years. Like it's just good to get him in that rhythm. Suarez leaves February 27th. Kind of been holding on to this, but I'm going to say it here. Like something that I've kind of a little bit been thinking about with Gino is that this Venezuelan lineup is stacked. You've got Michael Garcia at third base, who quietly has been awesome. And as I pull this up right here, he's with the Royals. He was a 5.8 win player last year. So he's their third baseman. At first, well, they've got Gleyber Torres at second, so that means Luis Arraez isn't going to play first, or isn't going to play second.
Right.
So you got Arraez as an option at first. Then you've got the Contreras brothers, both Wilson and Williams, as options at DH and first, and Salvador Perez is their other catcher, so he's going to be in the lineup on a regular basis. So I'm Suarez has to play. But I'm kind of a little concerned that he might not play every day, every game. Just looking at that lineup, I have no inside information about the Team Venezuela's plans, but that's something I've thought about. But he'll get an aggressive workload to make sure he's ready to play, 9 innings on a big stage coming up pretty soon. And then Francona said this about Edwin Arroyo today. He says this is really good for him. Just the chance to push Edwin, plus for Edwin to be in a scenario where he is the shortstop, which obviously, Ellie's the Red shortstop, but he is Team Puerto Rico shortstop. And there's some pressure on the kid. Brian, did you hear about this insurance stuff with the WBC?
Not entirely, no.
So it's a big story. It's at the last minute, all these older, really not all, some older players who were committed to playing couldn't get their contracts insured. So they at the last minute couldn't play. And the two most prominent ones were Carlos Correa and Francisco Lindor, the two shortstops on Team Puerto Rico, who is a very talented team, who's so talented that they get to host, very highly anticipated. Well, now Correa and Lindor can't play. Puerto Rico needs a shortstop. Hey, Edwin Arroyo, what's up, man? So now no pressure, kid, replacing Lindor on a team that's hosting. That's an exciting opportunity for Edwin that he'll get.
No doubt, for sure. That's a good day one. I hope that you sleep well tonight.
I'm very excited about the appetite I've worked up for a nice dinner coming up. I'm looking forward to that.
You earned it. And again, we know you're going to be there the entire time, and we're excited about that. We continue to ask the question when we do this show, what is Power Stack? Something else it is, it's digestible. You can do this, you can listen to this, watch this on your commute, on your lunch break, whatever. We're not going to give you something that's too big to consume week to week or show to show. And I think that's something we do well. And we're glad you're with us. So help us spread the gospel of the Power Stacks podcast. Tell a friend, listen, and share with us. And we'll get you more plans about what we intend to do through spring training and beyond spring training. But in the meantime, watch, listen, enjoy, and we're glad you're with us. So, Chaz, good work, man. I get to ring the bell for you. Good work on day one, and we'll look forward to more of that from Goodyear, Arizona. And for Power Stacks, for Chaz, and for producer Kent, we'll see you next time, man.